Hi, welcome. On this video, I'd like to respond to a question that came through Twitter regarding the use of remote callers and specifically with giving a warning beep. What's my attitude about giving a warning beep? Why not give a warning beep to a dog? Now, here's the thing to understand. Number one about remote callers is that typically, okay, I use them in a very specific for a very specific purpose within the crate itself. Okay, for express states of mind when I'm first dealing with, especially with a board and train situation. Again, my recommendation for those who are using crates and dealing with excessive barking. Okay, it's a way to interrupt that state. Now, when I talk about interrupting that state and the role of influence, generally 98% of the time I'm going to be using vibration. Okay, vibration only, and the other 2% in terms of using static shock, it's called, and I would frame it up more as a hand slap. Okay, with really being a little bit more stern, so to speak, with interrupting certain state, is when these states of mind, again, within a situation of the crate, going into a highly aggressive state, okay, which is a state where the dog is trying to break out of the crate, got its teeth in, something bad could happen, the dog could actually break off a tooth, and I will use that for the greater good to interrupt that highly entrenched and aggressive state. And here's the thing: when you're doing, when you're emphasizing the relational, I want to make this point very clear. When you're invested in and committed to using the relational method, okay, to speak the right language to the dog and focusing on relationship change, it changes the context of the remote caller. Okay, the dog becomes a lot more sensitive, okay, to the remote caller because it makes sense, okay, because you're going deeper in terms of what the relational method is doing to create relationship change. Okay, it aligns, and so therefore, when I talk about using certain devices such as a remote caller, it takes on different meaning. This is why you can stay away from using a static shock on a dog. And if you do that, then you only have to do it once or twice, and that's it. And it's not about lighting a dog up in that. And if that's happening, clearly there's a problem, and a lot of the problem is the fact of the methodology isn't lining up. The trainer is coming to agreement with this learning narrative, and so what it does, it adds such confusion, and the person's not changing, and it puts a stress load on the dog, and then it throws everything off, and then the person's pivoting off these devices in such a way that it just really bad, not just bad optics, but a bad process. And again, so you have to walk everything back, understand, and make sure that what's being emphasized, what's taking the lead, is the right method, okay, the relational method, which isn't about pivoting off devices like that whatsoever. Okay, so now getting back to the context of, warning the dog through the beeping sound of the remote collar. And the example I would use, again, because I framed this up by using, a human example in terms of dealing with say a relationship problem between a very selfish child and a parent. And when you look at it making sense, okay, now again, this is where this whole thing comes together with dealing with states of mind and dogs connecting what I call set points, okay, where because of the consistency of how influence intersects and how the method is working, coming together, joining together, okay, to affect change, you're dealing with the state of mind as it's happening. So therefore, how you're doing it, in the example I use, the reason I don't use warn the dog, again, based on the integrity of the method and how the language that is being spoken through the method, it would be warning dog would be like counting to 10. Yourself as child is in the toy aisle, okay, and the parent is counting to 10, is warning the child to come out. They've already invested in the toys in there, and they're already ignoring you. You're faded out, and so you're counting to 10 to try to create influence, and the child is already invested in ignoring you. Okay, so it needs to be action oriented. Okay, but beyond that, if that's happening in the first place, so you know that you have a relationship problem, and perhaps you need to invest differently in your parenting style so that when you tell little Johnny to come out of the toy aisle, he's coming out, and just the look is probably gonna have him come out. And again, so when I speak like that too, it doesn't mean that people automatically assume because of the culture right now that must mean that you're a bad parent and you're abusing your child to create that. That's not what I'm talking about at all. See, that's the thing about things getting all twisted. So no, it's because you're taking the right parenting style, which is the authoritative parenting style, not the authoritarian parenting style, which is the parenting style that most experts agree on is the right approach. So you don't need to count to 10. You don't warn. And it's just like, so same holds true with the remote collar. It is what it is. So when the dog is expressing a certain state of mind, influence is already going to be manifesting through the collar right at that moment to interrupt that state. So there's no warning given, okay, because everything makes sense and everything comes together a certain way. So the problem is when you start to warn, typically it means that the dog's state of mind is already heading a certain direction, and they're going to blow off that warning, and then you're always beeping the thing, and what you're doing is you're stalling out. Okay, so it's about moving forward. It's about getting to a point where the remote collar fades out of the picture. This is why, again, you'll see a lot of these devices never truly leave the picture. Okay, these devices always stay on these dogs because the relationship change has never happened. Just like while the parents always counting to 10, can never seem to advance the relationship, and things get worse and worse. So you have to understand the momentum of what you're doing. The methodology itself is critical. It's got to take the right form. It's got to come together properly, and then again at the same time it changes the context of certain devices. So the thing is the first kind of focus needs to be on getting the process correct. Not a learning-based exercise, but a relational change in process, interaction-based. Then that changes from there. That changes the role of devices in a much better way. It makes much better sense to the dog. They're going to respond much better to the devices in the role that they play. And everything can fade out because the relationship, you truly fade into the picture at a level that allows you to move beyond devices and crates and leashes and lines. So, but again, it's understanding about getting the process right to begin with. So hopefully that answers the question of why I don't warn the dog. And here's the thing about therefore if I'm using the remote the dog inside the crate, and the dog has, therefore the beep is a non-indicator to the dog. So I can beep the remote, but I'll beep it to make sure the remote is actually working, which is a great thing because the dog hears the beep. It's a meaningless thing to the dog, but it means that I hear that beep. The battery is okay, and I don't, if I'm using it, then I know that it's going to be working if I need it. So I'll use the beep as a way to let me know that the thing is charged. But no, I don't. That's why. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions about the order of things or why I do the how everything kind of falls into place, encourage you to check out my videos. Lots of great information, and my website too. I talk about the process. I talk about the role of devices, and making sure relationship change happens between dogs and owners. So thanks for watching.